Hey guys, it's Miss Leone here, and today we're going to be working on our drawing bottles practice assignment. The supplies you're going to need are a ruler and a pencil and a piece of paper. I always like to have a couple of extra pencils. Alright, so let's begin by labeling our paper. So this is called drawing bottles practice. Okay, there we go. And put your name, not my name. So you're setting up your paper just like I am. Next, we are going to divide our paper into 3 sections because this assignment actually has 3 parts. So I'm going to go slightly lower. If this is half, I'm going to go about here, slightly lower than half for part 3. Okay, and then I'm going to split this upper portion in half. Just make sure it's straight as you can. I'll stop around there. Okay, and I'm going to name this part 1, part 2, and part 3. So just make sure that your paper looks like mine. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to do, so I have 2 ways. We're going to do 2 types of bottles up here, and I'm going to show you 2 different ways to draw the same bottle. Okay, so the idea here is that we want things to be symmetrical, meaning if we split it down the middle, that it's the same, it's a mirror image on both sides. And I think that is the biggest struggle when students draw bottles for the first time. They get a little lopsided and wonky, so I'm going to show you 2 different ways to accomplish that. Alright, so for the first one, we are first, we're going to start kind of up here. Okay, so I'm just going to eye it. I kind of going to put a little line up here and a little mark down here. That way I know more or less like where my bottle's fitting. So I know that I have enough room to have the shape in there, right? So don't start too low because it's going to be stumpy and you may have to redo it, okay? So we're going to be breaking this down into different forms, different shapes to create this bottle at first. So for the top, I'm going to be making a thin ellipse, horizontal ellipse. I'm just going to follow that, sketching lightly. And we all know how to draw ellipses by now. We've been doing this quite a bit in our other lessons. Okay. So once we draw the ellipse, I feel like I can make this a little neater. You can always make adjustments after. Just make that a little rounder up. Yeah, there we go. Because remember, ellipse is a little rounded. So this will be the top of our bottle right there. Next, we're going to add, right below it, a skinny rectangle. Make sure I fix this lighting a little better. There we go. I'm going to just pull this paper down a little as I draw. So I'm going to do a horizontal rectangle right below it. And at this point, this is where we want to have our, trying to get it to match on both sides. So it's just going to extend slightly beyond the edge of the ellipse and even on both sides. And you can always make adjustments, and then I'm just going to cut across. So now we have 2 shapes. So we have an ellipse and a thin, wide rectangular prism. Next, I'm going to add a long, thin rectangle coming from the edges of the sides of my ellipse, almost like it's like when we do a cylinder, but at the bottom we're just going to make it straight. And we are going to be erasing a lot. So at this point, so as tempting as it is to use a ruler, I prefer for you to hand draw this so you can gain pencil control. So we're going to go a little longer than we need to just because we will be erasing. So I'm actually going to tilt my page because I realize that my line got a little crooked with me drawing in that direction. So just keep that in mind. Tilt your page when you need to. The idea is that it should be parallel to the edge, so that looks much better already. So I'm just going to erase a little crooked line I made and just solidify this. Not too hard though, we're still gently sketching. And I'm going to do the same thing here. And I'm looking at this to make sure that this is parallel. Maybe I'll go a little longer. Okay, and then I'm just going to close that off. And now I'm looking here and I'm noticing, now if you see that these two sides are not even, you may need to make one side of that first skinny rectangle a little thinner or a little wider. The idea here is we want to kind of make it match. So now we have three shapes. We have an ellipse, we have a skinny horizontal rectangular prism, and we have a long, thin vertical rectangular prism. Next, we're going to be adding an ellipse. So this is where an ellipse, which is, but we're going to make it wide enough so it's going to be a circle. And we're going to make it right around here. So now, depending on where we put it, this is going to become the shoulder, like this is the bottleneck, and we're going to be adding like the shoulders of the bottle here. So this is where we really want to make sure it's even and comes out the same distance on both sides. So I'm going to tilt my page a little, drop to do that. So I'm just going to kind of mark where I want it to go first. So I know I'm just going to do the top of my circle first. Okay, so more or less around there. So now I'll finish my circle. And circles are not my favorite shape to draw. They must be so even. So we'll do a, notice how I turn my paper around. Alright, so I'm going to look at it, and my circle is lopsided. So I'm going to fix that. So which side do I like better? First of all, I had a lot of little stray marks here, so let me just clean this up a little and see how I want to fix it. So let's see, I kind of am feeling, I think I'm going to, there we go. So once, even if it's crooked at first, that's okay, because once you've drawn it, then you have the opportunity to fix you can make corrections. So that's the best part. So we just want to make sure that they're even on both sides. Okay, so I'm just going to fix that, and then we'll continue with the rest of it. And then from here, it gets easier. There we go. Just want to make sure it's nice and round. That's what's going to make it even on both sides and symmetrical. See, so there was a lot happening there to make this circle. Okay, so now we have four shapes. We have an ellipse, we have a skinny horizontal rectangular prism, a long rectangle, and now we have our circle. So the final shape, we're doing one last shape, is we're going to make a rounded rectangle that comes to about here and starts right on the edge. So I'm just literally going to, from the edge of here, go straight down. and then from the edge of here, and at this point we'll be able to kind of gauge if it is indeed straight. And now, depending on the shape of the bottle you're drawing, if you were drawing from observation, like a real bottle, you would, it would be like this, but you would break it down maybe into slightly different shapes because of the size. So we have that, and we're gonna just we just wanna see it's like a rounded rectangle, and then the bottom, we're rounding it. Kind of reminds me of like an iPhone or like a phone. You just want to make sure that these curves are matching on each side, okay? And then we're just going to clean up any edges. So now at this point, we have our bottle broken down from the top, an ellipse, a skinny horizontal rectangle, a long skinny rectangle, an ellipse, aka circle in this case, and then a rounded larger one. And then from there we're just going to go in and start erasing the inside lines. I'm even going to erase right here. Okay. I'm going to use this little skinnier eraser I have and just erase those lines in there. And there we go. And then at this point you can just go in and like solidify your edges. And at this point, if you notice that anything's off, you can kind of just make little subtle adjustments. But if you get your shapes even on both sides, it should work out. All right, so that's the first way. Now the second way, so in the future, you may want to use one or the other or a combination of both. So part 2 is another way to pretty much draw the same exact bottle. So we're going to start by... Now we're actually going to use a vertical line to make symmetry. So we're going to be starting with this vertical line right here, right in the center. And I'm going to just I kind of want it to go from here to here as well. Just making sure it's really straight. And to check that it's straight, I'm going to use the edge of my paper. If this is even, then you know your line is even. It could be a little longer. We are going to do this light because we are going to be erasing that. So we have a line here, okay? So now we want to make sure that whatever we draw on each side are mirror images from each other. So we have that. Then up here, so I'm going to actually use my ruler here to make sure that it's evenly spaced. So you just want to pick a mark on your ruler. So I'll put it over here. Maybe if I put it at the 2, it really doesn't matter what mark you're at. So maybe I want this to be a 1/2 inch wide, but I want to center it. So I'm going to go like that. Okay, then I'm going to go on the bottom. I'm going to leave a little space. This I'm going to make it 2 inches. So I am leaving a little space. So I'm just going to go 1 inch on each side. Okay, and then I'm going to look at this. I kind of want it to be level with that side, so I'm using that side. It really doesn't matter which increment on the ruler you use. You just want to make sure that it is horizontal. Okay. Just going to line up an inch mark and do 1 inch on both sides, okay? So that's that. Now we're going to begin. So we can see we already have it like broken up, and we're just going to do the different sections inside of here. All right. So we're going to start up here. So I'm going to just tilt my page a little. And whatever I do on one side, I'm doing to the other side. So I'm starting here. So I'm looking, it's about that wide. Okay. I'm going to go down a little. And then go across. And then I'm going to do the same thing on this side, using my marks to make sure that they are in fact the same. So they're symmetrical, they're mirror images on each side. going to make one more little shape similar to that, coming out just as wide. So maybe I'll do the same on both sides just to help me out. So you can either do one whole side or do one side, just making sure that this is just to help us with the, so that it's not lopsided. So this is like the top of the bottle almost. Okay. So I'm looking, okay, it looks good on both sides. Next, I'm going to make the neck of the bottle. So that's going to be just a little slightly in from there and from that edge. And I'm just going to go down. And when I get to about there, I'm going to start curving it out. Okay, so I've done that. Now I'm going to make it match on the other side. And the idea is that it's mirror images. And then I'm looking here, where does this, it's about over here. So I just kind of went across, just so I know where to start curving it. And I can see it came about to here-ish. Just to kind of get that angle to the best of our ability. For many of you, this is your first time doing this. As you get better, you may not need to do this technique. And we really want to look at the slope, so I feel like that slope could be a little more curved. Okay, and then from there, I'm going to curve it back down to meet the bottom. So maybe what I want to do is just maybe do a little on one side. I mean, you could start with the left or the right. It really doesn't matter. It's up to you. These remind me of shoulders. If you were like drawing a person, it almost looks like a shoulder. Okay, and then from there we're just gonna vertically okay, so I think I got a little diagonal there because my lines are not, so even that, and this got a little crooked, so let me fix this. So having those marks even at the bottom is really helping me out here. Look how off I was. And then I'm just going to fix, I'm going to erase my adjustments. So see, so if yours became too wide or too shallow, that's how you're going to use this eraser. It's a little more firm. Okay. So I'm just going to erase all this extra. Alright, so now, oh, if you erase too much, you can just add it back in there. Okay, I'm just going to fix my slope here. And each bottle is different, so depending on the type, whether it's hot sauce or like a fancy vinegar or something. Alright, so now the final step here is I'm going to make my bottom curving. So I'm going to just make it even on both sides. Here, and then cut across up here. Alright, and then from there, we're just going to go ahead and erase our excess line. So this is going to help you to make sure it's even on both sides. And now that I'm looking at this, I feel like here could be a little, I feel like it's too wide here now that I'm looking at it. And I didn't notice that at first, right? So I'm just I'm gonna fix that. Something's a little off here, and that's okay. And if you really wanted to, okay, so I'm looking just to see the breakdown. Yeah, so it is in fact a little too wide. So I'm just gonna, but like looking at it, because I still had that line there, it really made me notice. And that's okay. So if you're fixing it like I am, good for you. If you had it without needing to do that, good for you too. All right. All right, there we go. So now I'm looking, let me just fix this little, so I mean there's just little tweaking at this point, I'm being nitpicky. So let's move on. So I'm just going to go in here and just erase these lines that I created. Let me use this other one. And then you can just, if you erase anything else by accident. Alright, so you have two ways now to draw similar bottles. You can use a combination, maybe split it, and then make the different shapes, and then you kind of piece it together, use one or the other, or combine them. Alright, so now we're going to do part 3, which is to make little, kind of looking like little potion-y bottles. So one we're going to use this vertical line, and then the other one we're not. So let's start. So here I'm going to just go right in here. I'm going to do one little vertical line. Okay, and I am going to try to spread out. So I know I want, this is going to be the top of my bottle, the bottom, and then I have a little cork up here. So I'm just gonna, for this, thank goodness it's not a circle. We're just gonna do a nice oval here. Think of like an egg. Maybe it's a little skinnier on top. The idea is we just want it to be even on both sides. So that's where the center line really helps, especially a rounded. It kind of helps you to see it a little better. Okay, you just want it to be even on both sides. And then I'm going to go in and just clean it up. Wow, okay, so that worked out. Maybe the bottom here, just fix a little. I'm going to make it a little shorter, because I do have to add a little bottom to it. There we go. Alright. Just erase the extra. So the next step is I'm going to start to make a little neck on each side. So I'm just going to do like little shoulders right there. Boom and boom. Okay? And then I'm going to close that up. And I'm going to make a skinny rectangle above it. Just making sure it's balanced on both sides. I'm going to make the cork going out at an angle, kind of like if these connected. I'm going to picture like the cork is inside of the bottle. Making sure they're at equal angles. Okay. I feel like this side is a little too chunky, so I'm just going to fix that. So this line is really helping me just to kind of make sure everything's balanced. And if you're watching this video and you're looking at the assignment, you can kind of see my process. I'm explaining it to you. Alright, and then I'm going to add below here a little kind of measuring with my eyes. A little bottom here, just for like, so it doesn't roll around. We have a little steady little ledge down here. Okay, and now we're ready to actually erase this line. Have this slightly thinner eraser. Just missing, erased any of the main parts of it, just feel free to fix that. And then I'm also going to erase part of in here. I'll leave maybe a little extending, that way it just gives it a little volume. So now at this point we're just going to add a little liquid into our bottle, but you can see just by putting that vertical line it's helping me make it even. So all I'm going to do here is I'm just going to, starting like a little more than halfway depending on the level of liquid, I'm just simply making a parallel line inside the shape. So you notice how I'm turning my paper here. And maybe for this side I'll go this way. But notice it's just like a little inside there. Just sketch lightly. You can always erase. And then we have that. And then this is going to be asymmetrical because it's going to look like the liquid is moving. So I'm going to go up, down, and then maybe like that. So now we have a little liquid in there. We're just going to add like a little highlight just to give it a little subtle detail. This might not be the most realistic highlight, but just to give it the illusion of glass. Alrighty, so that's our first one in part 3, and then we just have one more object, which technically is a form. Alright, just solidify any sketchy edges. Alright, and now finally, we're going to do a more square version, and we are not using the line in the center for this part, okay? So we don't need that. You can, but let's try it without it. Alright, so I know that I want my top to go here, and I know I want my bottom to go here. Alright, and then I know, so this is going to be like my little cork part up here, like my little, so I'm just saving a little space here, so I'm marking kind of where I want it to be. So this is going to be my base, this is going to be my top, so I'm starting with a rectangle here, a rounded rectangle. I'm going to go across, okay, trying to make it as straight as I can, and then at this point I'm going to just round it a little, just slightly rounded. Okay, rounding it, same thing here, rounding, and then we can just adjust our corners. Kind of looks like an AirPod case almost, or a little longer. Rounding. So depending on if you're lefty or righty, one side's round may come out a little better. You may have to adjust the other side, which is alright. That's why we're using pencils. They're very forgiving. Okay? And I'm looking at this. Alright. So I'm just going to fix this. Okay. And then I'm going to add just a little, maybe from where this curve is almost, right around here. No, maybe a little more in, actually. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Alrighty. So now that I've done that, and I feel like it's a little lopsided, so let me just fix it. There we go. Next, I'm just going to add a little line here. They're not touching. This is just to give an illusion. Alright, so I have that. So it will make sense in a moment. So we have that. Next, I'm going to start to add, so this is the bottle, I'm going to start to add a neck. So at this point, maybe if I see this is halfway here, I'm just going to put a little mark in the halfway mark, so then I know where my neck is going to go out. So I'm going to just, maybe about here. Maybe about here. It's a little wider than the other one, right? I like it up there. Okay. Once I do that, I'm going to make a half of ellipse. Like half. I'm not closing it. I'm just going to put like that. And then I'm just going to make another little edge in here. Okay, and I'm not letting them touch. So right there we're starting to get this. And then I'm going to erase this. And then I might just fix this round edge. Okay. Then I'm going to make my little cork, so I'm just going to go on both sides like this, right, like this. It's going to, like this, across. Then I'm going to come out on this side and this side. Right here and here, from those edges to these corners, right here and here. And then from here to the middle, and then from here down. So it almost looks like a crystal, right? It's okay if yours is a little taller or shorter. Now finally we're going to do our little liquid inside. So I'm going to start around this so it's like halfway full. So I'm going to go in and just trace out this little edge, coming across, going back here, again the little edge, and then we'll clean up any extra marks. Okay. For the inside of I'm going to make this go up a little and then back across. So I may have to extend this line up. And then I'm going to just, for the final, I'm going to curve it down and then swoosh it up to this point. So it kind of makes the liquid look a little three-dimensional in there, okay? And then at this point, I might want to curve. I might want to adjust my curves here a little bit if they look a little too squared on the top. Okay, so now at this point it's up to you. So those are two different ways to make little bottles, right? These are a little fancier. It could be like perfumes, little potions, or little whatevers, all right, guys? And then if you notice that maybe this could have been a little more sloped in, you can go ahead and clean up anything you need to. And if you want to add color, feel free. I would love to see that. Okay, and just clean up any straggly edges. So that's it, guys. So this was drawing bottles practice, right? We looked at two different ways. This one we broke down into different shapes and then he combined them and erased. This one we drew a vertical line and made symmetry on both sides, but they all should be pretty symmetrical on both sides, the actual shape of the bottles, and then inside, depending on like the liquid, it just depends. This one we drew a line and we made sure it mirrored on both sides. This one we did not, and then by just kind of adding this little line, it kind of looks like the bottle's a little more squared, so we just kind of added a little dimension to make this bottle a little different, and then the little corks are different as well. So that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time. Bye.